Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Live at 5 in the new studio here. Welcome to the new studio with me. I'm enjoying being here myself. I want to start off by thanking my dear friend and colleague Deb Flomberg, who's the marketing person in the office who really creates all the fun stuff that we have going on here. And look at this fun studio she made. Look at that live at 5 on the screen in the studio. I will say, if nothing else, we're having a good time. I'm entertaining myself anyway. I hope everybody else is having a good time too. It's a lot of fun trying to keep put a little smile on your face if you're still home in quarantine, like most of us are. Hope you're getting your vaccine soon. But meanwhile, we're here for you. Another episode of Live at 5. I've got a couple of great things for you today. It's really kind of neat, and as the sun sets, it's starting Tu B'Shvat. So I don't know if there's some great energy for you. A new year of sorts, as we've spoken about in previous episodes. It's pretty neat. A new year for tree fruits, and if you're growing tree fruits in the land of Israel, this is like a day on your calendar. And for the rest of us, also a little juice. I'll share another Tu B'Shvat thought that one of my colleagues, another rabbi here in Denver, Rabbi Steinberg, shared this week, that perhaps the reason that we make something out of Tu B'Shvat, which is really more of a technical day for tree fruit farmers, which we are not, most of us, the reason we perhaps celebrate it and we make a lot of it is there's a beautiful Talmudic idea it's brought in that says that after 120, at the end of our lives, we get up to heaven. We're going to be held accountable for every delicious treat that God gave us, and if we could have enjoyed it, and we didn't, we'll be held accountable. We don't want to. Nobody wants to be called on the carpet after 120 in heaven for having missed out on something delicious and tasty that God put in our world for us, right? So that there's no need for that. Enjoy it now, and consider yourself wonderfully blessed for all the good things. And so, to some degree, that's really what Tu B'Shvat is. The tree fruits are delicious. Who doesn't, love a fig? Oh, I actually got a couple of tree fruits in a little package prepared by the middle school boys at Hillel Academy. They do a fundraiser and they give out tree fruits, or they sell for a small donation tree fruits for Tu B'Shvat. And they had a fresh, dried, wrinkly fig in there, but it was delicious nonetheless. And I already, even though it wasn't Tu B'Shvat last night, I couldn't help myself. A yummy fig, and who doesn't like that? So have some grapes, have an apple, have a pomegranate, enjoy, and that way, when you can get up to after 120, and you can say thank you to your Creator for all the great things He made. There's actually a very famous story about this. I think it's told variously about different great scholars and Jewish figures of European history in the last century, not too long ago, obviously, because it's a story about a plane flight. And this great rabbi who, the most amazing scholar, never took his nose out of his scholarly works. When he was on the plane, he asked if he could have a window seat. And when the plane flew over the Italian Alps, he was, his nose was glued to the window, and it couldn't help his students who were flying with him, traveling with him, couldn't help but notice, and they wanted to know what he was looking at. And he said, the Alps. He said, I'm going to get up to heaven at the end of my life, and God's going to say, no, did you see my Alps? Huh? I made these great, gorgeous Alps for you. Did you enjoy them? What am I going to tell him? I didn't look. So he flew over and he made sure that he said, it's so that like really resonates with us in Colorado, right? When I had a group of boys here, as you know, that were visiting me for their off Shabbos, their little short break away from yeshiva, from Ner Yisrael, where my son's a 12th grader, and they came and visited me about a week ago, 10 days. And when we went skiing on Sunday, and I drove them up to the mountains, you get as you're going up to the, just by Genesee Park, just past Lookout Mountain, Genesee Park, and there's that bridge there, and you drive up, and suddenly, you're at the foothills at this height, and you're looking out at these gorgeous snow-capped mountains. You really see the the above tree line peaks, and it's just such a view, and so gorgeous, so astounding. And we all made the blessing together. There's actually a blessing if you see a gorgeous part of the world like that, is mountains or an ocean or something magnificent, and you say, "Blessed are you, God, creator of the universe, who ose maisa bereshis, that you made this beautiful world for us." We appreciate it. Amazing, amazing thing. And we have a beautiful world. So enjoy. It's Tu B'Shvat. Eat your fruits and enjoy. I wanted to give just also while we're sort of on this segment, Jag, I wanted to share with you a little bit of a Jewish calendar heads up. Okay. And the Jewish calendar heads up here for the week coming up is that we have next Shabbos is going to be the what we call Shabbos Mevarchin Adar. So Adar is the next month after Shvat, and every time we get a new month coming up, the Shabbos right before the big month begins, we make a special blessing on that month. Shabbos Mevarchen, we Mevarech, we bless that month upcoming, and that's actually going to be this coming Shabbos upcoming. So that's exciting. And then just so you know, while we're on the Jewish calendar heads up here, you will keep your calendar marked. Friday, February 26th is Purim, the exciting holiday of Purim, and Purim for me is this Purim is going to be special. Every Purim is special, but it's like last year Purim was sort of the beginnings of COVID-19 era for us in Denver, where we weren't quite sure, where people were walking around in Corona beer costumes in Israel, where we were sort of making fun of this thing as it was about to happen and hadn't hit us yet. And we kind of went home and sobered up after Purim, and pow, we were in this thing. So when we get to the 1 year later, this Purim, it's going to be a doozy. And this year it's Thursday night and Friday Erev Shabbos. So that is coming up too. Now I wanted to mention, although that yesterday, I thought mistakenly that there were no mitzvahs to mention in Parshas B'Shalach. I realized I was wrong. There is a mitzvah in Parshas B'Shalach. So we're going to go to the next segment of the show, Mitzvah of the Week, and share that with you. Happens to be that in the Torah, when the parsha here, where it talks about the manna from heaven, and mentions that 6 days of the week you're going to find manna for you to eat, and on the sixth day, on what effectively Friday, the day before Shabbos, you're going to find a double portion, and on Shabbos you're not going to find any portion. So your 7 days worth are going to come down to you in 6 days, and you're going to save one over for the next day from Friday to Shabbos. So there's a mention of Shabbos. In fact, just incidentally, the reason that we have a tradition to have 2 loaves of bread for a Shabbos meal is to remind us of the fact that on Friday in the desert, the manna fell a double portion for Shabbos. So we remember that with 2 loaves for a Shabbos or a holiday meal. And traditionally we cover the challahs above and below both when we make a blessing over them, as if to suggest the manna which was encased above and below in that layer of dew that we talked about yesterday. And so our Shabbos food and the manna in heaven is very closely associated. Now, the mitzvah that the parsha mentions that's relevant to Shabbos, and Shabbos is mentioned, is that even though we're going out during the week, they were leaving camp and going out into the land, the area around the Jewish encampment in the desert so that they should collect. That's where they would pick up and collect their manna. Then, but on Shabbos, they weren't to do so. They did not go outside the camp. They stayed within. And it's actually a commandment that we mentioned not to travel on Shabbos. I don't know if we mentioned that yet, but here it is. The mitzvah of the week, not to travel far from home on Shabbos. It's actually a length of space, a span of 12 meal, which is somewhat about 8 miles. A meal is about a kilometer. A meal is a Talmudic measurement of about a kilometer, and about 8 miles or so away from your community you can't go. So wherever the edge of your town, city, or community is, start counting, and further than that you can't stroll or wander or walk on Shabbos. That pretty large distance. I don't usually walk 8 miles in a day from home, and from the edge of Denver, that would be I have to walk a long way just to get there to start counting. So, but our sages reduced that slightly to about 2/3 of 1 mile, which is we think of as 2,000 amas. An ama is this distance from your elbow to when you put your finger up. An elbow, that's about 1.5 feet. That's an ama, and 2,000 of those is the distance you're supposed to travel or not travel past. You're supposed to stay within. And it's not particularly relevant for us when we celebrate Shabbos in a big city, because again, the measurement doesn't even start till you get to the edge of the city. But if you're camping for Shabbos somewhere, or you're on a campground or in a little area where it's just your residence for Shabbos, then you start counting immediately right there, and 2/3 of a mile in either direction is your border. That is a mitzvah in this week's parsha. Now, I also wanted to share another segment of today's show, Today in Jewish History. It happens to be, interestingly, I want to make mention of a yahrzeit. A yahrzeit, again, the date of passing of any person, Jewish person, great person. And interestingly, happens to be that this is the yahrzeit today of Rabbi Yosef Tendler, blessed memory. So Rabbi Yosef Tendler lived not too long ago. He died just in 2012, and he was the principal of the high school of Ner Yisrael. So Ner Israel, the high school is in Baltimore, and it's been around for over 80 years. Very historic and prestigious American yeshiva, and they have a high school portion. He was a principal of the high school for many, many years. And his son, Rav Aaron Tendler, actually just emailed me today, and his grandson, Morty Tendler, was with me last week when I had the boys from Ner Israel, and happens to be his yahrzeit. When Morty came, he brought me this book. This book is one of the volumes of the collected writings of his grandfather of blessed memory, Yosef Tendler, whose yahrzeit is today. And it's called Ode Yosef Chai, as if to say Yosef still lives, which is kind of a clever phrase with which to call his book. And he himself was one of the Yosef Tendler was one of the early students of Rabbi Aaron Kotler, was really one of the formative figures of all of Judaism in America. And some of the other early students of Rav Aaron Kotler were our own great Denver Rosh Yeshiva, the deans of our yeshiva here, Rabbi Yisrael Kagan, Yisrael Mer Kagan, and Rabbi Yitzchak Wasserman. They actually, so when Morty came, as I'll refer to him, the grandson of the author, he came and he brought 3 copies, one for me and one for each of the Rosh Yeshiva, and he wanted to personally deliver them, although we weren't able to. It was very sweet, because they knew the author of Yosef, his grandfather, personally, and they were all students of Rav Aaron Kotler's. Today is his yahrzeit, and so we're remembering him. And in honor of that, I want to share with you a short thought that I found relevant to what we've been talking about this week today on Live at 5 this week. About the parsha, I wanted to share the following beautiful thought. So yesterday we talked about the concept of hidur mitzvah, not hit her, hidur. Okay, it's a word which is from hadar, which means splendorous, beautiful. And we talked about how our mitzvahs that we do should be made beautiful, because it's actually an idea in the parsha, in the song that the Jewish people sang at the sea after the great miracle of the sea. They sang this song of praise and thanks, and in that song is a line, Zeh Keli Vanveo, this is my God, and I will make my life of service to him beautiful. So the examples that we gave, which are typical ones to give when we talk about beautifying a mitzvah, would be, mitzvahs with stuff. Mitzvahs with stuff like a mezuzah is stuff, or tzitzis is stuff, or an esrog. Since today's Tu B'Shvat, we talked about praying for a beautiful esrog, because that's a mitzvah, and you have an object, and you want that object to be beautiful. So you want a hidur mitzvah, to beautify that mitzvah with a beautiful esrog. So what I noticed is that is what Yosef Tendler, blessed memory, wrote here, is he quoted that there's another sort of an angle or element that we could bring. And if you look at the end of the Talmudic tractate about Shabbos, there the Gemara quotes this, the Talmud quotes this verse, And it tells us that one of the sages, whose name was Abba Shaul, actually says that the beautification of the mitzvahs you should do is to beautify not only the physical mitzvahs, like a thing, like a Sefer Torah or Torah scroll, a mezuzah, not just the stuff, but you could beautify yourself with the way that you treat other people. Because not only do we have mitzvahs of things, but we have the mitzvahs that describe and direct us how to treat each other beautifully. And the word can be understood as to becoming beautiful as we treat people beautifully. What a beautiful insight that is. So the mitzvah that we want to beautify then, suggested Rav Tendler, based on this comment in the Talmud and the Marshal's comment, as he writes up here very beautifully, is treat each other beautifully. Be a beautiful neshama, as I know, Andrea, as your mother would say, blessed memory. Be a beautiful person. Treat people beautifully. Just like God is compassionate, you should be compassionate. Just like God is beneficent and kind and giving, so should you be kind and giving as well, and beneficent. And with that way, it's not just the mitzvahs of stuff that we want to beautify. It's the mitzvahs of how we treat people that want to beautify. That's the other type of mitzvah, the mitzvahs that guide us to treat each other well. And that's a beautiful thing too. And we should beautify ourselves in that way when we treat other people beautifully. So that's a beautiful insight by Rav Yosef Tendler in his book, which I was so happy to receive from his grandson the other day. And today's his yard site. And we say, when you quote someone's Torah teachings, it's as if their lips are moving still in the grave, because it's like their voice, their lips are moving in the grave. And as we repeat what they said and what they taught, a very beautiful idea. I want to next go to our Parsha Riddle portion of today's show, because we asked the Parsha Riddle yesterday and we didn't give an answer. So I just want to briefly answer this week's Parsha Riddle. Parsha Riddle of the week, we said yesterday, is where, being that today is Tu B'Shvat, the 15th of the month of Shvat, where is there another 15th of the month mentioned in this week's Parsha? It's not a particularly difficult riddle. You just have to sort of look around and get it. And we had some correct answers even yesterday after the show. And the correct answer is, the Parsha mentions that the Jewish people, after the splitting of the sea, and they traveled to the Sinai wilderness, that they pulled up and they arrived on the 15th of the month of Iyar. Now, Iyar is the second month of the year. The first month of the year was the month in which they left Egypt, and they got out of Egypt on the 15th of Nisan. 7 days later, the sea split for them, and then they traveled on their way, and it was the 15th of the month of Iyar that they arrived there at the wilderness of Sinai. Now, the event actually has a little bit of a sort of a negative history associated with it, because it was there that they complained that there was nothing to eat, with a kvetching that we spoke about yesterday, and then they ultimately were gifted with the manna. So it eventually ended well, but for a while it didn't go great. It's not a particularly notable sight. The day on the calendar when the Jewish people first kvetched about what were we going to eat. So perhaps not the most place where we really want to remember it necessarily, but it is noteworthy. It's a 15th, and so that's your Parsha Riddle. If you got it right, wonderful job, good for you. And it's really very delightful to have folks. If you're watching us on YouTube, where the episodes are now going, apparently they used to be going to a platform called Vimeo, which I didn't realize, and they were all up there for your watching, but I had no idea, so nobody else ever knew either. But if you look now to the Jewish Experiences YouTube channel, you can find the old episodes and keep up with us, and please do subscribe also. So the next thing that I just wanted to talk about today is this particular upcoming Shabbos. It's very, very there are very few Shabboses during the year which have their own name, a Shabbos with its own name. And there are just a few of those. There's the one between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which is called Shabbos Shuvah. And then there's the one right before Passover, which is called Shabbos Hagadol. And there's only a couple others. Shabbos Shuva and Shabbos Hagadol, and generally any Shabbos that has a special name. It really gets its name from the special Haftorah that we read. Somehow the Haftorah is chosen in conjunction with the special energy of that date in the calendar. And so the Shabbos, if it has a name, the name comes from the Haftarah. So, for example, Shabbos Shuva, the one between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, is so named because the Haftarah that we read from the prophet, I think it's Yeshaya. It's either Yeshaya or Yechezkel. I forget which one it is. Or maybe it's Yirmiyah. Okay, it was one of those three for sure. Anyway, the words of the Haftarah are Shuvu Banim Shovavim. I think it's the first chapter of the book of Yeshaya. That there the prophet tells us that we should come home. And the word come home, Shuvu, return, is about returning. And since that's the theme of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, they're called the 10 days of return of Teshuvah. And that's what the Haftarah says. So we call that Shabbos is so named Shabbos Shuvah. Similarly, the special Haftarah that we read always on the Shabbos right before Passover talks about this great day that will be Hayom HaGadol v'Hanora. And it talks about the day will be Gadol, so we call it Shabbos Gadol. Gadol means great, Nora means awesome. This is talking about a great, awesome day of redemption, just like Passover was that ultimate redemption of our past. The Haftarah speaks of the ultimate redemption in the future, but we talk about it as if it's great, and therefore that Shabbos is called Gadol. So this week we have a song. This particular parsha contains the song at the sea, and so it's called Shabbos Shira, the Shabbos of song. And the Haftarah also contains a song. It's not the same one. It's not the one that the Jewish people sang after getting out of the sea, but it's the song that was later sang by the prophetess Devorah. Devorah, you may know many Jewish people named after her, including Deb Devorah Flomberg, who my fabulous colleague who created this awesome background for us. May her name be praised. She's named for the prophetess Devorah, and Devorah was a great leader of the Jewish people and a prophet in her own right. And she, after the victory of the Jewish people over the Assyrians, I think it was, they're fighting in her day. We were attacked by them, and it was a victory. And she led the people in a song, in a song of praise and thanks, very similar to the song of praise and thanks that the Jewish people sang after the rescue from the Egyptians in the Parsha. So the Parsha and the Haftarah are very related. Both have these songs, and we sing the song of these two songs when we read the Torah, the Parsha, and the Haftarah. Shabbos of song. Interestingly, there is a custom before the Shabbos of song to, on Friday afternoon before we celebrate the Shabbos, before we get into Shabbos, prior we there's a custom to put out breadcrumbs or bird seed and feed the birds. I don't know if you're familiar with that custom. Feeding the birds right before this particular Shabbos. Very beautiful custom. We don't feed stray wild birds on Shabbos. If you had your own birds, that would be different. You could feed them. But if they're stray birds, that are not yours, or your responsibility, you wouldn't feed them on Shabbos, but you put out the breadcrumbs before. Now, why do we feed the birds on Shabbos Shira? So there are a couple of reasons given. One of them is the reason that, as it were, the birds, chirped along and sang along with us when we sang the song of praise and thanks at the sea. That they sang there. The birds also have, they sing, they chirp and they sing. And the Shabbos of song, and the birds are also singing. So we're feeding them, and they're singing with us. There's another reason why we put out bird food, which it has to do with the manna and with Shabbos. So we mentioned before that every day the manna came, for that day and that day only, and every day they would go out and they would pick it. On Friday, a double portion came, and Moshe told them, "Don't go picking on Shabbos. Don't go outside the camp." We talked about that. The mitzvah of the parsha is not to go too far outside the camp. Don't go outside the camp. There won't be any manna for you. Okay, there's nothing to go for anyway. Don't go. the Jewish people in the desert during this period of time and the Exodus and the early moments of the desert, of the story in the desert, there were two people that the Torah actually gives their names who were really challenging for Moshe. If you're like a teacher and you have like, just two troublemakers in the back of the room, everything you do that they're just making trouble. They're just starting up. They want to undermine everything that, every bit of your authority. So Moshe had his two in the back of the room, and their names were Dasan and Aviram. Dasan and Aviram, and their stories, it's their names are not given in the initial narrative where we meet them, but the Torah says that even when Moshe was young, he came out of the palace and he saw these two men fighting. Who were the two men, the two Jews fighting? It was Dasan and Aviram, and they made trouble for him. And later on, Dasan and Aviram would join with Korach, and they would be part of the rebellion against Moshe's authority. They were really a thorn in Moshe's side. So the Medrash records, we have a historical record that first Shabbos with the manna, when Moshe said, "Don't go outside looking for manna. On Shabbos it won't fall." They took their manna that they'd saved and they put it outside the camp, planting it so as if to show that Moshe was lying. It was a deceitful trick there were people that went out and checked, and they wanted them to find manna and to show that Moshe was, to make Moshe look bad and make it look not true what he told them, that it wouldn't be there. So they hid their manna out there. And the Medrash says that the birds came and ate it up, so that it wasn't there to be found when everybody went. And so we have this tradition as a result of the birds who swooped in, ate the manna that they had hidden and saved the day, and they rushed into Moshe's defense against these troublemakers. They ate the manna to undermine Moshe, Dasan, and Aviram's sinister, mischievous efforts. So we thank the birds in advance of this Shabbos by putting out some breadcrumbs and feeding them in advance. It's a beautiful idea, right? Remember that. So you have some little bits of leftover challah from last year. You can put it out for in advance of this week's Shabbos. It's a beautiful little custom. Interestingly, just going along with one of the things we talked about in regards to Tu B'Shvat last week, there's another custom we have of putting out some of last week's challah bread. In part, Tu B'Shvat is sometimes an opportunity for us to remember the mitzvah that we have not to waste the resources of the world. It's regarding trees that the Torah teaches us, Baal Tashchis, the mitzvah, it's much later in the Torah, but the mitzvah of not wasting precious resources. You want to think of the environmentalist movement created in the 20th century. Jews have been felt responsible for making sure not to waste precious resources and to take care of our God-given planet for thousands of years. It's right there in the Torah. It says don't waste, don't squander your resources. And it's taught in terms of trees, particularly fruit trees. So one of the things that we also do is when we have leftover food, leftover food that's edible. We should try to eat it as much as possible. What would a good meal be without leftovers? You have to have some leftovers, and hopefully you can do something with them. There's actually in several Jewish communities around the world, there are beautiful nonprofit efforts, organizations, or just even individuals' efforts around gathering the potentially copious leftovers from like a wedding or a bar mitzvah or a catered event. That those leftovers that are unserved and unused could be captured and distributed to those in need. It's a very beautiful way of both caring for those in need and taking care not to waste what is a valuable resource, precious, yummy, catered leftovers. Let them be distributed. And I have a friend right before the pandemic, we were talking about doing that in Denver, and then all the events got canceled. So that was put on hold. But God willing, the time will come, and if there are opportunities, we'll work on that. That's a beautiful idea for our community as well. So what I was going to mention though is that this idea of putting last week's challah bread out, we don't want to waste it, and we And we also want to treat it respectfully. We treat the food. I mean, here's the 2 loaves of challah for Shabbos, we said, are reminiscent of the manna that God sent us from heaven. And they're demonstrative of the divine blessing by which we live. So we don't want to treat it disrespectfully. We don't want to just chuck it. And it's very common that folks will do something else with it, make croutons, make challah kugel, or they will put it out for the birds. And so even if it's not just before Shabbos Shuvah in Jerusalem, it's quite common that you'll see on a fence somewhere, on a wall, in a little pile outside in a place where the birds, or in Jerusalem, the stray cats, can enjoy it and eat it, and it doesn't get thrown away. And it's being fed, it's being used for something. That's not an uncommon thing for you to see. That's our show for today, folks. I hope you've enjoyed being in the studio with me. Again, thanks to Deb for making all these cute studio wear for us. A lot of fun. We hope you have a healthy and a holy, and we'll see you tomorrow towards the end of Tu B'Shvat again on Live at 5.